Hi guys, and welcome to this week's BartenderHQ.com podcast, and on this week's show we're talking about flaring within your means, and making sure you're not dropping, not only in competition but also when you're behind the bar, and why that is the most important thing about Flair bartending. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, as you guys know, we entered the Masters of Flair competition. It was the first competition that I've entered as a part of the Flair project, which is our little project where I'm crowdsourcing routines and crowdsourcing Flair moves that I can use to create a wicked routine for the World Flair Championships at Roadhouse in 2016. That is the aim, that is where we are going with this. And it was my first competition since we started that off. You may have seen a little while ago I did a video of my 6 AM Flair practice sessions because with the job that I was doing I've had a lot of problems with actually fitting in enough time to practice my Flair. Things are getting a little bit easier now, which is great. As I mentioned on last week's show, I'm changing my job. I will still be working with the Magic Shop in a design and marketing role, but not in the day-to-day way that I have been for the last few years. So all that being said, at the Masters of Flair I was delighted to find out that I had won the Best in the Midlands UK prize. So amazing, really didn't expect to be winning anything. At this point it was basically to see where I am at the moment and see where we need to improve for the Flair project. And there is a lot that's come out from that of things that I do want to improve, and there's actually a few ideas that I've got from the way that this routine went that has kind of really shaped the way that I'm now thinking about Flair bartending. So I want to share a few of these ideas with you this week, and I think it's pretty exciting actually. There's a lot of stuff here that kind of relates to the stuff that I've been doing at the Magic Shop partially, and some other stuff because I also perform on a stage magic show as part of the crew. And some of the principles that David Penn, who's the illusionist at the core of that show, the guy that you see on that stage as the magician, a few principles that he's mentioned in the past, because he coaches so many magicians. He's one of the most respected magicians in the UK, and I'm so proud to have been able to work with him. And we will still be working together going forwards. But one of the main things that's come out of this is the reason that I did as well as I did at that competition was my lack of drops. And this is something that I've mentioned before in the past. It's not something that's brand new. This isn't new information. We talked about the Roadhouse rulebook in the past and the amount of points that are deducted for drops and spills and that sort of thing, and how that can be really key to actually scoring well in these competitions. Now, at this competition, I believe during my 7 minutes on that stage, I believe I had 2 or maybe 3 drops maximum. Now, one of those was actually after the time had finished, so I don't know if that one counted at all. That was as a part of my Big Ass Move segment where I did the blindfolded segment. If you haven't watched that video yet, please head over to the YouTube channel, which is BartenderHQ.com/YouTube. Check out the video. There's actually the routines up from every competitor on the night, so there's 9 full routines there with a couple of different camera angles, so we could kind of capture the best of what was going on. So I'd love for you guys to have a look at that and leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of the routine and what you think I need to be doing. And as I say, I would love to see some moves from you guys that I can start learning. As I've said, I am changing my job from what I've been doing at the Magic Shop, so I will have a lot more time to practice. And also the production quality, hopefully, of the videos will be going upwards, and we'll be making stuff a lot cooler for Bartender HQ. As you might notice today, I'm actually stood in front of a green screen, and we're doing this as a kind of bit more of a studio production kind of podcast video. If you guys are listening on the audio feed, there's nothing really that you're missing out on at all, but this is kind of my experiment as well. This is my first attempt at doing green screen video, so look out for some more cool stuff happening in the future. I could be on a beach doing this podcast very, very soon. But as I say, the main thing that kind of made me score well at this competition was smoothness, because it's all stuff that I know well, it's all stuff that I've done 100 times before and I do behind the bar pretty much every night. I didn't do anything with more than 2 items. It was almost exclusively bottle and tin flair, so a huge area for me is to actually start experimenting with 2 tins and a bottle, 2 bottles and a tin, 3 bottles, 3 tins, and some more of the tools, and doing some ice scoop flair and that kind of thing. So that's something that we're really going to focus on. But more importantly, I think, is something that kind of occurred to me afterwards. It wasn't put in for this reason. However, the way that the routine was structured, and I use the word structured in a very loose sense, I was actually hosting the event, so rather than being upstairs in the practice room with the rest of the guys, I was actually commentating the first bartender before me, auctioning off their drinks, and then getting my stuff ready really quickly. I'd been there all day. I was the kind of liaison for the venue as well, so as a result of that, that meant that I didn't have too much time to be prepping bottles and that sort of thing on the day. We also ended up forgetting the garnish for my mixology drink, which would have made it even cooler, as I was doing a Breaking Bad style drink, and I'd got these wicked Breaking Bad like blue meth candy sticks, which would have looked really, really nice with the lighting effect that I added. As I say, if you've not seen that video yet, do go and check it out on the YouTube channel. But yes, the most important thing that I think I've learned is that structure-wise in the routines, the majority of bartenders kind of do a linear build throughout the whole of their routine. There's no kind of peaks and troughs. And one of the big things that I've learned from working with Dave on the Illusion show is that being able to manipulate the way that your audience feels, the emotional kind of roller coaster of a routine, or of a show, or a stage show, or of any magic trick, or a sequence of magic tricks, is absolutely vital, because you kind of, you draw them in, and then there's a release, and they feel really good, and they get kind of an endorphin rush. Now there's a couple of points, actually 3 points in the routine, where we actually really built tension, and as I say, it wasn't my intention to do that, but the first one is actually where, with the first drink, I believe it is, or it was the Alligator's Kiss, which was our Midori sponsored drink. I took the chilled cocktail glass. I took the chilled cocktail glass, placed it on my forehead, and balanced it there while I poured the shaken drink into the glass. Now, this kind of, for me, it felt like it took forever when we were doing it. Watching the video back doesn't seem like it takes as long, but the forever thing is when you're nervous about something, when you've got a little bit of nerves going on, and you've got a little bit of, oh, what if this goes wrong? You know, this is going to go everywhere, and you get drink in your eyes and that sort of thing, and that has happened to me in the past. Because you kind of build that tension, the crowd are also, like, on edge. They're kind of drawn in, and they're like, there's a hushed silence. I mean, there were a few kind of oohs and things like that during the actual balance, and then as I took it off of my head and placed it on the bar top, I got huge applause. So they were drawn in by this section of the routine, and they were like, oh, what's going to happen? It could all go horribly wrong. And then as I take it off of my head and it's all worked out, it kind of feels good to them, and they're like, yeah, he's done it, yeah, and we were all behind him. So that's a really interesting thing. In addition to that, I also did one move where I throw the full glass, grab it from the bar top, throw it over my shoulder, obviously flat, and catch it behind my back. Now that's a really, really cool move that I've been able to do for a few years. I've done it in competitions in the past, and I've actually just got a whole bunch of DVDs of some of my early competition stuff, and some early practice footage, which will be going up on the YouTube channel again very, very soon. But I actually dropped it in one of the competitions about 15-30 seconds from the end of the routine, and I had to make a Long Island iced tea or something along those lines in about 15 seconds so that I got my drink ready for the end of the routine. It was literally one of my last moves. I picked it up from the bar top, threw it over my shoulder, and completely missed it. So it is one of those tension things. Again, the whole of the crowd sort of, whoo, and it's okay, you know, caught it, no problems. The last one of these sections where you build a bit of tension was actually the blindfold section. So I'd taken the, I'd finished my routine, my 6-minute routine for the Masters of Flair, and it was time for the big ass move. So I've got an Oakley headband on, and I just pulled it down over my eyes, grabbed the bottle and tin that I'd prepared ready, so I knew exactly where I was looking. Not looking, obviously, but where I was reaching to, grabbed those, did a little bit of up and down moves, very, very simple stuff, and then behind my head, and into a shadow pass to catch it by my left shoulder, but on the back of my right hand, into a stall. I nailed it first time, which again never really happens. Normally it takes me a couple of attempts to hit that, but you get 3 attempts in the big ass move section, so we're allowed to play around with some of the cool stuff like that. And again, the crowd are really drawn in because all of a sudden this guy is blindfolded flaring. That nobody else does this. I know it used to happen way back in the day. There was a guy called Scott Young from ExtremeBartending.com who used to do this, and he used to do some, again, kind of simple moves. It's nothing of your big exhibition flair stuff where you're going to be flipping like 5 or 6 items. That is never going to work blindfolded. But as I've mentioned in the past, being able to flare blindfolded also allows you, when you're actually working, to take your attention away from your tins and your bottles that you're flaring with, keep eye contact, and maybe even hold a conversation with your guests while you're flaring. And that is one of the most powerful things, as I've said in the past, it's one of the most powerful things you can actually do with Flair bartending, is actually keep your attention purely on your guests, and they can see that you are not new to this, you've been doing this for years, and it's immediately obvious that you are a true expert when you are not even concentrating on these glass bottles full of liquor that are flying around your body. When your attention is purely on them and you're still doing this, that is a really, really powerful thing for your guests. So, as I say, this tension that builds really, really does draw in your crowd. And I did notice throughout some of the other routines, the audience were kind of chatting to people, and there was some sort of background talking. And because I'm obviously commentating on these bartenders' routines, this is the sort of thing that you do pick up on, and you're trying to G up the audience a little bit more. Didn't have any of that particularly for me. Rob Cartin, who was DJing for us on the night, was superb on the mic and helped out introducing me, and then did all of our awards at the end. And thank you, Rob, for all of your work on the night. You were a legend, and I can't believe you were able to do it after that much wine. But Rob Cartin, a guy I've worked with actually with TGI Fridays for quite a long time. Very, very cool guy. And actually I won a bit of stock at the end of this. Let me just go and grab it for you. So I ended up with quite a haul of prizes, starting off with a fantastic bottle of Stolichnaya vodka, which is one of the main sponsors of the event. That was thanks very much to Luke Toddwood over at Maximum Events. I also ended up with a lovely bottle of Brugal Especial White Rum, which is, again, very, very tasty, very good stuff. Another one of the big sponsors. And happily enough, this is the prize to end them all. Stolichnaya Elite. This is about a 50 quid bottle of vodka. Very pleased with that. So I got the Stoli Elite and the Brugal for my routine and for winning Best of the Midlands, and the nice bottle of Stoli was a thank you for hosting the event. So it was a great night. We raised a bunch of money for charity, had a really cool night, and I do want to thank all of the sponsors that helped us out on the night. So that was Stolichnaya, Brugal, Midori, Bowls Liquors, Barblades.com. Johnny from Barblades.com was there on the night selling some awesome gear. I think pretty much all of the Reflex bartenders ended up picking up pink bar blades, which looks really, really cool. And they do some cool custom design stuff as well if you want to pick any of that up. I will leave you a link in the show notes. We also had JM Bar Events were a sponsor. We had BartenderHQ and the Flair Project, of course. We had Chamberlain's Private Security based here in Birmingham, and absolutely superb night, and I just want to thank everyone that helped support the night and make it as good as it was. And of course Reflex Arcadian, the host where I work. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. It's going to be a shorter episode again. I seem to keep saying this at the end of pretty much every episode now, but I need to play around with the computers and see what we can make appear behind me. Might just leave it nice and white and clean and lovely. But yes, thank you very much for joining me for this week's BartenderHQ.com podcast. My name's David Eden-Sangwell. I've been your host, and I'll see you on next week's show. In the meantime, find us on all the social media. You know where it is now. I'm not going to keep saying it. I'll put links in the show notes. See you next week.